Welcome, everyone, to another episode of LLD Conversations. I'm your host for today, David Brackett, and I have the honor and pleasure of sitting here with someone who is a real pioneer and leader in our industry. I'm really excited to get the chance to ask her some questions, for you all to get to know a little bit about her story, about the languages that she represents, what's been some of the challenges that she's gone through as an interpreter and translator. I think you're going to find it extremely valuable, so stick around. And as we jump right on in, I'm going to read her bio because it's a great bio. I'm going to read that here, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. I have the pleasure here of sitting today with Hoy Neng Wong Soon. She is a PhD candidate of Auckland University of Technology in New Zealand, and she is of Chinese and Samoan descent from various villages in Samoa. She moved to Aotearoa, New Zealand for tertiary education at the Auckland University of Technology in 2001. Hoy Neng is a qualified and experienced Samoan interpreter and translator in both health and legal industries. She's an interpreter who is working in a wide range of healthcare settings and for many different organizations. Her interpreting work includes forensic, psychiatry, and other mental health settings. Hoy Neng is one of the youngest Samoan translators and a reviewer of many translated texts in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and abroad. She works on complex English to Samoa translations of medical research projects. For example, participant information sheets. She works as a research project manager and research officer at the Pacific Islands Families Study in New Zealand, and in the Vaccine Trust Program as well in New Zealand. She's also an interpreting and translator educator at the Auckland University of Technology. She has co-authored publications on the important role of interpreter in mental health, as well as the accuracy and appropriateness of translated information for Samoan-speaking communities in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and Australia. Hoy Neng, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, David, and thank you for for inviting me to your program.
We're very, very excited to have you. And what's interesting is that right now, as we said, I'm sitting here in Southern California. It is 1:07 p.m. November the 7th here on a Thursday, and for Hoy Neng, it is actually Friday at 10:07 a.m. Sitting in you're in New Zealand right now. Is that correct?
Correct. On the 8th of November.
No, the 8th of November. a whole day ahead of us. Yeah. So you have to tell us what Friday looks like and before we join Friday.
It's a quiet day at university. The sun is out, but not really. Yeah, we have clouds, but it's a beautiful day. I'm grateful for it.
Excellent. Well, we love to learn a little bit more about you and a little bit about your story before we dive in. So just tell us a little bit about where you are from and where you grew up.
Tēnā koe, David. So kia ora, everybody. So I greeted you in Te Reo, or the language of the Indigenous people, or Tangata Whenua for Aotearoa New Zealand, acknowledging the past, present, and those to come, the owners of the land. I greeted you in the heritage language of my grandmother, that is Ngangana Samoa, or the Samoan language. So David has basically given that information about me, but my name is Hoy Neng Wong Soon. I am of Samoan and Chinese descent. So my granddad is Chinese and my grandmother is Samoan. I was born and raised on the island of Savai in Samoa, and then moved to New Zealand for tertiary studies. I am from many villages of Iva, Salelologa, Palauli, Sala, ilua, Gataivai, and many more. So that's me.
And how did you get started in the language services industry?
When I came to New Zealand from Samoa in 2001, I didn't know what to do in terms of what to study. So one of my mom's cousins, my auntie Linda Vangana, she saw something in me and she said that you speak English. I don't know how she thought that. And then she introduced me to Professor Inika Kreze, who is the professor of interpreting and translation studies here at the Auckland University of Technology. So I sat in her classrooms and I learned that this is quite interesting, and language is power, and having our communities informed consent in everything is power, empowering our communities. So it drew me to working in language and being an interpreter and translator. And this is from English into Samoan language and Samoan into English.
And do you know roughly how many languages are spoken in New Zealand? In Australia, maybe?
Yeah, so in New Zealand, there are more than 25 languages, and Ngangana Samoa, or the Samoan language, is one of the most spoken languages because we have Samoans migrating over from the islands to New Zealand because they see it as the land of milk and honey. English and Te Reo Māori as well, which Te Reo Māori is one of the official languages of Aotearoa New Zealand. But for New Zealand, it's more than 25 languages. For Australia, according to EthnoLink, this is 2024, it's more than 300 languages.
Okay. Wow, quite diverse. And in the United States, do you know how many Samoan speakers there are in the U.S. today, roughly?
No, I didn't get into that, unfortunately, and I do apologize.
Oh, no,
but I do
right.
get clients who send me translations to be done.
From all over?
Yes, from all over. The world, including the U.S., which I cannot disclose those clients.
Yeah. So what, Hoy Neng, what does training opportunities, what do they look like right now for Samoan interpreters? If someone's wanting to get started, what kind of training programs or opportunities are out there for them to get started?
Thank you, Dave, for the question. So in terms of training to be an interpreter or translator, here in New Zealand at the Auckland University of Technology, we do deliver translation and interpreting courses. And there are other institutes who deliver those courses as well, but I'm more familiar with the Auckland University of Technology and our program. So in terms of training, so students learn about the language that, for example, in health, it's originally from Greek, Latin, and even English words. So our students learn how to unpack those words that are formed from, for example, Greek. You'll hear cardiomyelitis, and it's formed from three words, and then we teach our students how to unpack that one word into three. And cardio is referring to the heart, myo is muscle, itis is always common in medical conditions, and that's information. So we help students understand how they unpack those technical words or jargons so that they're able to interpret or even translate into their local or language other than English. So it's inflammation of the muscle of the heart or the heart muscle.
Yeah. And when you were getting started out as an interpreter, you talked a little bit about your passion for wanting to start, but when you were getting started, what was the biggest challenge that you faced as a new interpreter?
The challenge that I faced during that time was being the youngest, and the other thing was being the youngest interpreter. And the other thing was my whole name is Chinese. I was always questioned whether I spoke or speak Samoan fluently, and my Samoan colleagues, the interpreters, would have a shock when I speak Samoan fluently, not just everyday Samoan, but the more formal or respectful Samoan, which is culturally appropriate in how we address different people at their different statuses. So that was one of the challenges. And when I was starting pro bono work as an interpreter, the first few years trying to get my hand into get an idea of what the profession is about. It was challenging to actually put into practice the theories that I learned in the classroom. There were many challenges, and it's not just technical medical terminologies, for example, taking healthcare settings there, but also looking after myself in terms of health and safety. Because, for example, working in forensic psychiatry, interpreting for patients who have severe mental health conditions, I would go through doors that cannot be opened, two doors that cannot be opened at the same time. It has to be one door after the other, and it was high risk. Always closed. Yeah.
And what do you see right now as the largest challenge that we're facing in our industry? You know, from your vantage point there in New Zealand, what's one of the largest challenges in the industry that you see today?
I believe it's having professionally trained interpreters and translators. So I'm using both spoken and the written form of relaying the source text into the target text in this field. I truly believe that it's very important that we have professionally trained interpreters and translators, because in my experience over the years, I've found that when given feedback from some patients or clients I work with, in both interpreting and translation, some of the words in English, the interpreters and translators still use the English words when they're relaying the message into Samoan, but it shouldn't be the case. We interpreters professionally trained should unpack those words, find the meaning or the essence of that concept or that jargon, so that the clients or patients, pardon me, that we're working with understand. And our patients cannot, in the healthcare setting, cannot just give their consent without being well informed of that information. That is their right, their human right. So this is where we need to really breach that communication barrier, and using language and be professionally trained to be interpreters and translators. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you mentioned your experience in the mental health setting, what do providers really need to understand better when it comes to providing language services in the mental health setting? It's a very unique environment. Like you said, there's lots of different things that must be taken into consideration, safety, security, just being a couple of them. What do the medical providers need to better understand when providing language services?
I think, I believe that one of the most important things when working in the mental health setting is understanding that culture and language go hand in hand. We cannot just interpret using the language that we speak fluently, but those who are providing these services, organizations providing services that interpreters get assigned into, they need to understand that we come with the culture as well. There are different forms of the language because it's influenced by the culture that we brought up in. So we use both culture and language together in order to deliver the interpreting and translation services. So I truly believe that's one of the important things that they need to consider. And when it comes to training, they cannot take one without the other.
Yeah. Okay, we've got time for two more questions for you, Hoy Neng. Thank you so much for being with us today. So, what was the best advice you received as an interpreter starting out? You know, you mentioned being the youngest Samoan interpreter. What was the best advice that you received from a mentor or from someone?
I wouldn't say advice, David. I would say it's a great a blessing for me to hear clients or patients and support persons or their families saying that they see a younger generation coming into using language so that they're able to help the wider communities in terms of that communication using language. And it was one of the things that motivated me and encouraged me to get more trained and do self professional development so that I can be up to date with information and everything with regards to the profession that I'm working in. So it's more of the service that I get appreciated from the community.
Yeah. And what message of hope or inspiration would you leave the community that's listening to us today with?
A message of hope, I would say, you're not alone when it comes to navigating the complexities of the systems that we, in the countries that we have migrated to, even whether you're a migrant yourself or an indigenous person in your own land. Language is power. Language is understanding, and we don't just give out. Again, I mentioned before, our consent. It's our right to ask and seek help so that we can navigate the complex systems that we're living in.
Excellent advice. We are a community, and there is support here. I know NCHC is a great resource for those who want more guidance. And Hoy Neng, I just want to again thank you for taking the time and being with us here all the way from New Zealand, all the way from Friday, joining us here on this Thursday. And for those who might want to get in touch directly with you, Hoy Neng, what is the best way they can do that?
By email.
By email, okay.
Yes, please.
Like, so if it's all right with you, we can share your email.
So great.
Or LinkedIn. So again, just want to say thank you, Hoy Neng, and I hope you have a very blessed rest of your Friday.
I really love it, David, for the opportunity. So thank you so much. And I wish you all the best to your viewers and listeners throughout this, different areas of this world. So blessings, manuia,